Get in it. Get in it. Good to be here. Okay.
I was sitting back
So we are going to kick off our afternoon with father-focused education and peer support models to address maternal health outcomes. The next voice you hear after mine will be that of Reginald Day. But I need to tell you a little bit about Reginald Day. I hope to not embarrass him because he's not shy, but he's very modest, and he's very humble, and he does not brag about himself enough. We all know that from him. So I'm going to brag about him a little bit on his behalf. So Reginald Day is this man. He is a certified lactation counselor. I can't name 5 other male ones, so I'm going to try to clap for that. So he is a male certified lactation counselor. Shout out to the others out there, but he's the first one I know. He's also a community with over a decade of dedicated service to fathers and families. He specializes in fatherhood and
I'm looking for you. I'm standing at the door looking crazy. There's a here in the tunnel.
To guide families through their mentor. He provides essential community resources to these families. He provides connections to these families. And he also provides coaching. He is also a mental health first aid trained individual. So let's give it up for that, right? Because we know mental health is maternal health. Reginald earned his bachelor's degree in health service administration from the University of Detroit Mercy. Where are the Detroit people? All right, Detroit Mercy. And he has over 15 years of experience, right? So that's a long time. As someone who has worked for a local health plan and in the community, he gets to see kind of both sides of the continuum, right? He is committed to a holistic approach. Reginald ensures that the entire family has their needs met, not just dad, so that's really important. He manages families by supporting them and the social determinants of health that are impacting them. We know that's important. He also integrates that into their care. His expertise and advocacy have been recognized through his participation in numerous state and national conferences where he champions the inclusion of fathers alongside mothers and infants and maternal health initiatives. Reginald is also the founder of the nonprofit organization Get At Me Dad. All those words are spelled how they sound. Get At Me Dad. So that's your next piece of homework. Look it up. Put it in your phone, type it in. It's gonna come in handy somewhere. So Get At Me Dad is the organization that he is the founder. This initiative supports fathers and families by focusing on education, equipping them with necessary tools, and engaging them along with their partners and healthcare providers, right? Partners, healthcare providers, alongside the mother, right? Because we don't want to forget about fathers and partners when we think about maternal infant health. Last but not least, outside of his professional commitments, Reginald enjoys quality time with his family, exploring nature, and if that wasn't enough, he hones his skills in photography and videography. Shameless plug, him and I are gonna do a documentary together someday when we both can find time, right? So the next person you will hear from is Reginald Day. Please give him a warm welcome as he comes to the stage. That was pretty warm. You can make it warmer later.
So I was gonna hit you with a what up though, but I realized I'm on the west side. So how y'all doing? So yeah, they got me up here after lunch, and the proverbial itis begins to set in. I get that, so we're going to try to keep it live for you all. But again, as was stated, I am Reginald Day, and I am grateful just to be standing before you. As she stated, I don't do well in these spaces because I just like to do the work because I believe in the work. I believe that the work we do is making impact, and so I started to say, okay, how can I shake y'all up? Let me just go ahead and throw out a bunch of all the DEI words that they say we can't, say because they flagged them, right? So I was going to hit you with all that. But I was like, well, maybe that's not a good idea. So then I was like, what can I do? So my thought then went into, well, should I put on some Childish Gambino and put on This Is America? But again, I thought that was not a good idea. And so I just was like, okay. Over the past few weeks, I had to reflect on how do I open this up, and it was actually one of the greatest places where you're going to talk about religion, politics, you're going to learn from old wise, sages, if you will, and that's the Black Man's Barbershop. And so in the barbershop, we were sitting there, we were talking, and the riots, the LA riots came on. In 1992, there was riots then, so 33 years ago, there are riots that are happening very similar to today. And my mind went back to the words of Rodney King, right? Very famous interview he did. He said, "Can we all get along?" Right? He said, "Can we all get along?" He said that we're hurting the most, and I'm going to, add my little spiel there, the most vulnerable in our population. He said the older folks and the children, but I like to put them in one bundle and say the most vulnerable, right? The most vulnerable. And when I think about the work that we do in maternal infant health, we're focused on those that are most vulnerable. And if you don't believe that, then I would ask you the question, why did you do what you do? Because if you don't believe in what you're doing, then you're not going to make the impact necessary to see that these outcomes that we're going to talk about actually move forward in a positive way. So, that thought, right, of Rodney King's voice took me down the path. I like to just sit and ideate. And I began to think about American professor John A. Pop. And for those who don't know, great guy. You should look him up. Does a lot with belonging and othering, and talks about that with UC Berkeley. But there is a podcast that I was listening to recently where he talks about targeted universalism. And so I was looking that up and just kind of, in the work that I do, and I'll talk about that in a minute. He talked about targeted universalism. And so targeted universalism essentially is, you have universalism when you think about a cookie cutter approach, almost like a Band-Aid, if you will, that you put out there to try to, like a wide net, to support as many individuals as you can. But with that approach, oftentimes what happens is simply this: you don't get the impact that you look for. And honestly, it's inadequate because those who need it most, right, those most vulnerable populations don't receive the care or the benefit of that universal, whatever it is. Then you have targeted, right? Targeted is much like what we are seeing in many places where you say, hey, there's a disparate population, there's a group of people who need support. We talk about those words that have been weaponized now, but those words simply only identify those who need the care, right? You target and say, let's go ahead and do that. It's very cost effective. But the byproduct of that is you got people who feel left out. You have people who feel like, I call it the what about me syndrome, right? But what about me syndrome? You're like, well, how come you're helping those folks over there, but you're not helping, the other ones over there? And so we get into this bickering and hostile environment, and then guess what? Nothing gets done. And so then he presents targeted universalism, which is a merging of the two, right? We understand that we have this universal goal out here, such as improving maternal health outcomes. But we understand that each population may require a different approach, the targeted aspect, which is why we focus on the father-focused education. We believe that using a targeted universal approach, we're able to see improvement in the areas of maternal and infant health outcomes by targeting what we are focused on at Get At Me Dad, which is supporting fathers, right? So, I need to do a couple things to get these out of the way. For those who know me and those who don't, I've been approached by many people and saying, hey, is your wife every day here? She is not here. She wishes she could be here. She's actually in DC. But I will let her all know, let her know that you all said hi, all right? I get that out of the way. And then I also want to quickly go into this. Disclosure, I am a manager for Priority Health. But as you can see, I took my Priority Health gear off, and so I am off the clock. Which means that the words that I say represent Reginald Day, Get At Me Dad only, and not Priority Health. So please do not charge my employer for anything that I say here, because it is not maybe their views or opinions, but they are mine. All right, I have teammates in the room. Y'all can check that box. You know I did it. And again, I'm out in my clothes. So there we go. All right. So I purposely, we have slides here. I'm going to try to keep the slides brief because I do want to introduce somewhat of a barbershop conversation, if you will, with the gentleman that I will be introducing. very shortly. But with this 1 hour that we're going to spend together, we're hoping to address some of the evolving roles that fathers can play in family health. We want to talk about some of the key health disparities that paternal involvement can actually help to improve and address. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the community approach when we think about the practical strategies for healthcare professionals to engage fathers. And you're going to get a lot of that from our panel discussion. So let's set the stage, right? Let's set the stage for the evolving role of fathers. And I feel like, you know, some of us know that when we look at dads and we see them, we don't think about the fact that the world has changed, right? I can talk to so many in this room, and you see dads that's picking up their children, taking their children to daycare, dropping them off at school, taking them to doctor's appointments, all of these things, right? But I feel like in a lot of spaces, the world has not caught up with the fact that dads are actually involved. I was going to save this story for later, but maybe I'll tell it now. When we every year have to complete the paperwork, and I like stories, right? I'm going to give you some numbers, I'm going to throw them out there, but I believe sometimes we need to tell stories because it makes a greater impact. And so, every year, I'm the one who completes my children's enrollment paperwork every year for school, go through that whole spiel, because you got to fill out 1,000 documents. It's like, don't you have the ones I filled out last year? But we're in the same district, right? And so I go through, I put my name first, my number, but whenever something happens at school, guess who they call? They call mom. Like, I did not write my name on the paper or type it on the paper and say, hey, put me down as first contact. They skip right over dad. Why? It's because, my opinion, of course, we've been so trained to think about moms as the nurturers and carers for the children that we subconsciously say to ourselves, Dad must not be involved. Dad must not be engaged. Dad might be too busy. Why do we do that? And so when we think about setting the stage, right, you have to think about the historical roles of fathers has shifted. Today, modern trends show that dads are more involved than they ever have been in history. So if that is the case, why do we still look back and always go to mom, right, birthing person to care for children when dads want to be there? When we want to start to see dads shifting in engagement, we have to begin to include them. We have to begin to think about them as wanting to be there. Dr. Joy talked about biases and unlearning this morning. There's some unlearning that has to take place when we think about fathers and fatherhood. So health disparities. So I just need to say that, again, this work is deeply personal for me. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of the details, but I will tell you that the work that I do for fathers is not my 9 to 5. And there's many in here that can attest that the work I do, I don't get paid for it. But I believe in it that much. I believe in this work because my wife and I have been married close to 18 years. Could have ended in a tragedy in our first 2 years of marriage because our children were boom, boom, boom. That's a story for another time. But she had hyperemesis, she had preeclampsia, and physicians, the medical team would not listen to her. And it was frustrating to see my wife suffering and no one cared. Literally no one cared. And so it emboldened me to say, look, if you won't care, if you won't speak or show up, then I'm going to do that. I became an advocate with her, not for her, but with her. And we began to pretty much shift the narrative of what's going to happen in our life. I bought her a blood pressure cuff with basically no money at the time because I was still in school and we were on the struggle bus. But I was committed to seeing that my wife would live and not be another statistic. I believe in this work because I had 2 children who were both in the NICU. And when you think about the birth experience, a lot of times you don't plan for being in the NICU. And so there was trauma associated to our parenting, the intro, I should say, of our parenting journey. I believe in this work because of the child that we lost. And many people don't know. That's not a story I often share unless I need to share with dads who are going through. But I believe in this work because of that. I know the struggle. I know the pain as a father. I believe in this work because of the trauma that I experienced. I believe in this work because I understand that there's others who don't have to go through the same thing. So my position right here, right now, is just to leave, hopefully, a lasting memory of why we want to include fathers. So when we think about health disparities, there's only a few that we're going to touch on today, because obviously we know that there's many. And listen, I printed out paper, y'all, because technology has been fooling with me this week. I don't know what it is, so please just bear with me as I look here. But again, we only have a few things that we're going to touch on. So we want to talk about maternal and infant mortality. We're going to talk about infant mortality, preterm birth, low birth weight, child development, mental health. And I'm going to get into SDOH because, again, I want to make sure, it's time to go. I want to make sure I leave room for the panel because that's the meat of our discussion. But with that, we see our national numbers, CDC reports maternal mortality. We can see the arc. We all know what that arc represents, right? The pandemic. And we know that at the height of the pandemic, we saw the increase. And we celebrate because the decrease is coming back down. Let's put it, let's clap our hands. Celebrate that the decrease is coming back down. However, we still have not achieved, right, where we were 7 years ago, which means that there's still work to do. So as we celebrate the wins, yes, I think we ought to celebrate wins. We should not lose sight of the work that's left. There's plenty of work left to do. So I want to highlight this slide here. Again, when we talk about maternal mortality, we know that Black women are 3 to 5 times more likely to die than any other race. And I like to let this sink in a little bit because we professionals. So professionally we get caught in the numbers, but there's lives that's attached to that, right? There's people who are suffering. And so when we think about the fact that we have this curve here, and Black women are always at the top of this curve, not in a good way, we need to ask ourselves what is going on. Target universalism is meant to focus, in the work that we do with fathers, is meant to focus on how can we bring these numbers down for Black, for Asian, even for white and Hispanic. And Get Every Dad, we serve all dads. I mean, we serve all dads. We have a dad who's first-time dad at 64, Caucasian man, and he was like, I don't know what to do. And we're like, okay, come to us, I guess, right? This is the first time for me. This is the first time for me, too. I mean, 64, I could not imagine. And I'm only sharing it because he gives permission to share. But when you think about that, right, that screams to me that dads want to be educated no matter where they are on their journey, right? And so we try to support dads based off of where they are and what they need. Again, targeted universalism. I don't think it's hard. But when we look at this, right, it stands out because everyone else decreased, African Americans increased. Why? Why? It's not because they don't want to have the best and healthiest life that they can, right? There's something that needs to be done. There's questions that we need to ask. There's work that needs to be done. And it's not to say that any other race that's represented here don't deserve to be or have their disparities addressed. It is to say, though, that a blanket response will not work. It is to say that when you have someone sitting in front of you, we look at their race not to judge how much you're going to be compliant, but to say, okay, what are you facing? What are the threats that you may experience, and how can I best support you to overcome those? That's when I look at this slide. That's what I see. There's so much more. Again, I'm running out of my own time because I put myself on a time limit, so I'm going to try to stick to that. Let's talk about Michigan real quick. In Michigan, we know that 19.1% of deaths, or 19.1 deaths, excuse me, is our mortality rate, which is still lower than the national average, yes, but it's still unacceptable. It's unacceptable because at this point here, approximately 80% of these deaths are preventable. And as a dad, I'm more the helicopter dad. If I see danger coming, and my children are about to go off the edge, I'm like, no, get over there. I want to prevent something happening before it happens. It's so bad that if there was a child in here and they were playing on this stage and I was sitting out in the audience, my heart would be going because I'm like, I don't want that child to fall, right? That's how bad I am, in a sense. But that also means that I'm very focused on what can we do to prevent things from happening when they don't have to happen. And so when we think about that in the context of what is aiding in the development of this maternal mortality crisis, we have to think about one of the number one causes, which is mental health, right? We have to think about cardiovascular disease, and that includes hypertension, right? That includes diabetes, that includes all these things. But guess what? When you have a dad in place, right, we speak to that. We have to also talk about inter-partner violence, which also goes to some of that mental health as well, right? A lot of times, we have to understand what the root of that is, right? I'm not ashamed to say that. Early on in my marriage, I was angry because I felt like no one cared about me. I went through my own spaces of anxiety and depression and didn't have the words, the tools. No one cared about me to address it. And so I suffered for a long time and it showed up as anger, right? Now, did I hit my wife? No. But did I punch some walls? Absolutely yes. I want to let that sink in because a lot of you know me and probably like, man, that black man did that. I'm not scared. I have nothing to lose. I'll be honest with you, I have nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing. So I'm not afraid to be transparent. I believe in transparency because guess what? If the light is shining on me, there's nothing in the darkness. But I mention that because we use that to address the way we relate to dads. Why are you angry? It's okay to be angry, but let's explore why. Well, no one cares, no one seems to understand what I'm going through. Let's talk about that. I'm grateful to hear that Governor Whitmer is working to ensure that men can find, right, good paying jobs, because a lot of times, let me tell you, when a black man is not making money, all men, but especially black men, is not making money, he's not going to be happy. That's fact. Right? And so, how can we support you in getting the education you need, to get the finances you need, because you're more inclined to take care of your family at that point with proper guidance and education. All right. I'm going to give myself 2 more minutes, guys, and I'm going to introduce y'all, all right? So, just kind of trying to set the stage. Here's some numbers. You can look these up on Michigan's, MDHHS website. You can look this up on CDC. We're going to continue to fast forward. Infant mortality causes, I'm going to just pause here real quick. Dads can positively impact these 3 areas. We think about preterm birth, which is another cause of infant mortality, right? Infant mortality happens because moms oftentimes go into labor prematurely, right? Well, why is that? Oftentimes it's associated to stress. Now there's a talk we're going to be doing later on about that, not here, but later on this year, about that. But stress is one of the biggest factors that causes a birthing person to go in preterm labor. So what does that mean for the dad? Well, we work with many partners to educate fathers on how to help reduce stress. Number 1, don't be the stress factor. That's number 1, right? I hear some clouds, it's okay. I acknowledge, it's real. Don't be the stress factor. Number 2, let's give you some tools to know how to show up, how to support, right? Accidents. Why is this important? I didn't have a childbirth education class when my children were born. They're about to be 16 and 17, right? So, I'm going based off of what I was taught. And that wasn't always great. However, based on my own experiences and now education, we can help support dads to understand how to prevent accidents from happening by knowing how to care and properly care for their children, their infants, right? We talk about sudden infant death syndrome, Safe sleep is important, so we talk about that, right? Talk about the importance of breastfeeding, which is linked to the decrease of SIDS. I had to get that in there because I'm a CLC, right? And I do believe breast milk is the best milk if you can do it, right? So, anyway. Dads can positively affect all of these. The key word here is with proper education. And that's what we work to support dads with. So, again, over time, here's some more stats for you of the things and why it matters and how dads can support. Again, child development, mental health, these are facts from National Fatherhood Institute. And just know that when dads are involved, children do better mentally, developmentally. It's a fact, it is proven, because dads bring a balance to what they're already getting from mom and birthday persons. There's a balance that they need, right? And so, you know, my children, I love them because they are now balancing me out. I tend to not know how to sit down, and my now 17-year-old daughter has been emboldened to say, Dad, you're doing too much. And I look at her, and I'm like, you are right, and I can't be mad at you because I trained you to have a strong voice. Yeah, and so then I go sit down for a minute until she goes to sleep, and I get back up doing what I gotta do. But it's important because I'm proud that she feels confident enough to do that, right? She has had her own struggles that I'm not going to share, but she stands proudly to say, Dad, I'm going to take care of you because you took care of me. She just wrote me a letter. I took a picture of it because it made me cry. Of course, Father's Day happened. Shout out to Father's Day, right? And she told me some things, and she was like, she's into videography now. I'm proud of her because I'm planning on giving her all that stuff. But she was like, I felt like a letter was more appropriate for you. And so, the letter was, I'm going to frame that bad boy. Because it really showed me how much sacrifice over these last 17 years that I have made has left an impact on her. And it all goes, again, to the point of development and mental health. She had, like I said, she's going through her own journey, right? But because now she's seen me articulate, she's seen me grow. As an example, she's like, if you did it, I can do it too, right? And that's just my story, but there's countless stories that we have. And again, we're going to get into that in our conversation. All right, why are dads left out, cultural norms. So again, we talked about some of those things when it comes to, again, being first on the call list at school and bypassing. I'm not going to tell you about the story I had when our child was first born. I wrote my name on the paperwork for the home visiting individual that came out and did not acknowledge me, did not, nothing. No conversation, how you doing? Do you need anything? Nothing. Act like I didn't even exist. And that burned me up so bad. It made me so angry. But it's like we ignore, like we're trained to see that as invisible. So we have to undo that, right? We talk about the system gaps again. Father-friendly hospitals, father-friendly initiatives are important. We want to make sure that we see that as a partner. Again, I talk to dads all the time, and we talk about partnerships. I get into this in a bit, but we include dads when there's problems. But we don't include dads before a problem occurs. And then we get mad when the dad is like upset. But again, we say, hey, most dads are trying to prevent things from happening. Anyway, I'm not going to go to my own soapbox. But there are opportunities for systems and medical systems to engage that do dads and father-friendly initiatives. Of course, economic and social barriers, right? As a CHW, we're always working to support dads with understanding how to overcome some of those barriers because the barriers are real. Right? Trying to get a job in this day and time is very challenging, but again, the bottom line is that we need to include that. So, I fast forward to a lot of that. There was so much more I had to say, but I'm not going to do that. So, anyway, I want to get into the meat of our conversation here. And I want to talk a little bit about the community approach as we get ready for this panel discussion. We believe firmly, again, in that in the community approach. So much and so that we have taken so much time to invest in making partnerships with individuals in our community because we understand that this work is bigger than us, right? This work is not about us, it's for us all to come together so that we can see change. And so we partner with individuals in the lactation space. Shout out to Southeast Michigan IBCLCs of Color, right? We partner with Birth Detroit, one of the first women Black health centers in Detroit. We partner with Nature's Playhouse and Postpartum Support International for the mental health aspects. They have a climb coming up in Detroit this weekend, and so we'll be part of that. We're covering all of our bases, understanding care. Of course, as a CHW, I'm always looking at connecting folks. And then, we have some national partners. Again, I'm not going to get into it, but last year we're so proud to have been a part of an initiative through SimQuick and producing the Color of Fatherhood. The Color of Fatherhood is an initiative that I supported along with two of my brothers in the work, Jason Larsosa and Wayman Hayes. And we put together, along with SimQuick, partner with MDHHS, this book, which is actually a guide on how to support dads, specifically Black dads, on the perinatal journey. You can find this information on SimQuick's website. I encourage you to check it out. It's a great tool because, believe it or not, dads want to be involved. We have groups at Get At Me Dad. We have multiple groups. And we are actually growing in some of our partnerships. I'm not going to speak into that right now, but we do virtual groups, we do in-person groups, and when you get dads talking, trust me, you're not going to get them to be quiet. Especially if you feed them, And so we are doing a lot, so I encourage you to check that out. But we're going to get ready to introduce our panel. And so first up, we have a brother from Muskegon, Michigan, Norman Young. He has 3 children, and he serves fathers and families for 10 years. Norman Young is an entrepreneur and an advocate for fatherhood. As an independent fatherhood programming consultant, Norman has over a decade of experience facilitating supporting organizations that are developing fatherhood programming. In 2022, Norman created his support network for fathers known as Man Cave. Man Cave is a program that supports Muskegon County fathers and father figures by providing a safe space to gather, build relationships, learn, grow, and connect. Norman is also the creator of a Father's Love program curriculum, which guides fathers by offering practical tools and resources to create safer environments and spaces of well-being for their children. Overall, Norman has a passion for the strength of families, and he's currently working with school districts across Muskegon County to build programs that support the well-being of children and enhance parent engagement. When he is not serving the children and families of Muskegon, he's a loving husband, father, and follower of Christ. He loves transforming his living room into a movie theater on Friday nights, being outdoors, and learning and experiencing new cultures through food and travel. Let's put our hands together for Norman Young. Next, we have Mark Williams of Battle Creek. He's a father of 2, and he has been serving families for about 5 years. Currently, he serves as a facilitator for Fathers Speak, where the mission is to empower new, expectant, and experienced fathers by fostering open communication, strengthening family bonds, and reminding every dad that he is seen, valued, and never forgotten. He partners with Milk Like Mine, where his wife serves as executive director. They have a host of services including doula, lactation, childbirth education, and more. Let's put our hands together for Mark Williams. And last but certainly not least, Chris Porter from Detroit, Michigan. He has served fathers and families for 5 years. He is the program coordinator and co-lead of Get At Me Dad. Chris is a dedicated husband, proud girl dad, brother, and committed servant leader with a passion for maternal and mental health advocacy. His focus is on changing the narrative of supportive partners in pregnancy and postpartum and creating tools for healthy relationships. As a union steward, Chris brings his expertise in leading groups through meaningful discussions and helping them appreciate diverse perspectives. He co-facilitates fatherhood support groups at both Nature's Playhouse and Birth Detroit. Chris, his wife, and their daughter enjoy living, working, and playing in the vibrant city of Detroit. Let's put our hands together for Chris. right, gentlemen. Like I said, barbershop shop conversation, y'all. So we're gonna chop it up, right? We're gonna chop it up, and they get the benefit of entering into our conversation. All right. So as we think about the, that was my failure. I was going through the slides and forgot to be out. As we think about the topic of fatherhood, focus, education, and peer support, right? We've been doing this work for quite a while, and so we want to just kind of like chop it up about how the work that we do, right, shapes and helps to support the families that's in the community. So my first question is, how has your role as a father shaped your perspective on maternal health? And we'll start this question out with Chris.
So for me, it's just understanding that the role I play is vital and necessary. Not so much that she needs me, but it's for the best with our family, right? Understanding that I certainly know my wife can certainly do it alone, but why do homework alone when you have help? And so that's my take on it. Never do it alone. If you don't have to, if you have the help, choose the help.
All right. Mark, you want to add to it?
Yeah, most definitely. One of the things that helped me to appreciate being in that father role, I'm a stepdad that stepped up for a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And my wife noticed the things that she went through before we get together. It just shows to me, I was thinking about how important a father role plays, and just thinking about not just being there and just trying to be 9 to 5, just trying to give them the food and things like that, but being there for the family emotionally, physically, involved in everything that they do. You can see the growth in the family, and that helped me to really have a bigger perspective of maternal health, and noticing that as a father, that's a shared responsibility that we can have a privilege to.
Appreciate that. All right. So what has led you, and I think this is going to be for all of you, what has led you all to become a support leader for other dads, and what gaps are you trying to fill?
I'll take that one first. I think just seeing the need in the community of fathers just needing support, I'm gonna go further of my need for support. I have 3 daughters at home. My youngest child, I stayed home with the first 2 years of her life, and I got to reverse that role that my wife first took. She stayed home with the middle child, I stayed with the second, and it was just clap it up for the moms who stayed at home. I mean, any mom who stayed at home, whole different perspective on life, whole different perspective of life. And I realized of how much help and support I needed. I figured out how much I didn't know, but I was willing. And I think when you have other men in the community, a lot of people say, well, Norm, you're doing this work, you're supporting fathers, we just need 10 of you. No, there's a million of me.
Yeah.
They just need support and help to be equipped to do the job that we were positioned and destined to do.
While we pass it down, a joke came to mind. I said, a lot of the families we work with, it was like, if dad had to give birth, we'd have a whole, we wouldn't have these issues, right? If dad had to give birth, the statistics wouldn't even matter at that point, because it'd be 0, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, I remember one day my wife was doing a childbirth education with a couple, and I was just sitting there just paying attention to the dad, and I'm like, he just looked like a deer caught in headlights, just sitting there, he was like, I'm just here so I don't get fined, so to speak. He don't want to get in trouble. And so I just sat there and talked to my wife, what can we do for the dads? Really, not just to have them be there for the education, for the mom, the baby, to feel like they're showing support. And I started thinking for myself as a dad, just what things did I have to learn along the way as being a stepfather? And so, I was talking about that just being a stepfather, but from a day one dad, hey, I don't even know how to change a diaper. Hey, how can I connect with my partner when we just added a new person to our family? And the different stresses and things like that, those are things that was coming in my mind. And so I just wanted to really try to focus on the fathers, because a lot of fathers, they carry a lot of weight emotionally, and most of the time, the cultural thing that I've been seeing, and most dads I've talked to, is just like, hey, you're just gonna need to suck it up because you gotta take it, you gotta be the provider, you gotta be the rock. We don't wanna see you cry, we know you cry. And if you do cry, we don't never see it. But they have pain, they have a lot of emotion and things like that. So we just wanted to create a safe space for those dads and build comfortability because we want them to know that they're there, we're there for them.
So what got me started on my fatherhood journey, shameless plug, my wife signed us up for a childbirth education class in Burberry, Detroit. Thank you again. And when I got there, I was so overwhelmed and knowing like, there's so much I don't know. Am I the only one who doesn't know all this stuff? And I'm like, I polled my friends, I'm like, hey, like, did you know this? And I remember looking at my brother, he was holding my godchild with her head in his arms. I'm like, why are you holding her like that? That's not safe. And then I learned the childbirth education. I was like, that's actually okay. I'm like, wow. So fortunately, that time I was able to meet this amazing gentleman by the name of Reginald, who just opened my eyes to so many things of fatherhood. And I was like, I want to be able to spread this information, spread this joy of fatherhood, as well while spreading this information, so that you know, like, hey, we can do it. It is our job to do it, and we have the support to do so.
We're going to transition a bit. So how do you use fatherhood groups or mentoring to educate dads about maternal health, especially things like birth plans, breastfeeding, and postpartum warning signs? You want to start with that one?
Yeah, I think for my group, a lot of it is just through storytelling, right? I think we have a mixed group of fathers. I don't have a dad that's 64. But I do have a wide range of just ages of dads, and we share our stories, and we learn from each other's mistakes. And I think in the midst of storytelling, it starts to build up this, oh man, I do got a role in this. And I think with all of the stories, in all of our experience, we put those things together, and we talk about birth plans. We talk about, man, we would have had a better outcome if I was there at all of the appointments, if I knew some of this information ahead of time. So I would say our biggest component, we share the data, but through the storytelling, the learning from each other's mistakes, and I think that's been the most helpful.
And also one of the things that I noticed, we talk about things that most dads really don't even really think about. Like, for instance, I remember we had one meeting, which is like, hey, do you know that fathers can have postpartum depression? They was like, what are you talking about? You know, and they're like, well, have you ever had these kind of signs, these sense of level of anxiety? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, well, we talk about it when it comes to your partner, but you're going through the same thing too. So, you know, we have those conversations, and you see that light bulb moment switch on them, and be like, wow, I didn't really think about that. Or, you know, just in regards to a father, it's not just having that title, but, you know, what little things such as supporting, even though we consider them little, those things go a long way for the family, for family growth and family unity. And so, just those kind of meetings, but also, we invite the dads at Battle Creek to come to Baby Cafe here in Middle Like Mine. And also, there are different information that is brought about. It's not just like, here's a piece of paper, you take the time to read it. No, we really discuss and really open up with these dads to really understand that they have a vital role into the family development.
So I'll also add this real quick. So I know at Get Any Dad, one of the things that we oftentimes do as well is we do, as part of the childbirth education class that we support, we go through the warning signs. We talk about the mental and anxiety, depression warning signs. We talk about the physical signs, right, of excessive bleeding, right, and blood pressure swelling, right, blurry vision. Like, these are things. And so, you know, we have that My Aim QR code on deck that we can just make sure that they have it. Keep it in your phone, because you always want to have your phone with you most times, right? So if you notice these things, now you understand and can be educated on what to look out for. We talk about this because, you know, this is where I think we know what we don't know. When dads are engaged, when dads are present, and we include them, right, they're oftentimes the one that's there that can help be hands, feet, eyes, everything needed to report back to the medical teams that are there to support, right, along with the doulas and the midwives and all of that. if we work in tandem together, right, we can help have that communication to ensure that those who are in need, the most vulnerable in this situation, right, the moms, birthing persons, babies, right, they get the care that they need, because that is what matters. And so we really focus on making sure they're educated. Why? As Norm stated, because those were our experiences. We either had it or didn't have it, right? Or we had to step up because no one else would. And so we take those experiences, because experiences are part of our culture. Right? That's how education truly gets passed. I'm talking about the barbershop, right? If we can make sure we're educating properly and giving the right information, we're going to start to see the narrative shift. All right, so how do you keep fathers engaged in educational spaces that were traditionally designed for moms only? Mark?
Yeah, like I was speaking about earlier, when we had Baby Cafe, most of the dads that come there, they think, oh, this is just for her and the baby, I'm just here. And I've been noticing sometimes they get kind of standoffish. I'll go to them and talk to them. Not about, just, hey, here goes some information. No, I really go, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Really trying to pull them out to see what interests them and talk to them. Because sometimes I notice that a lot of dads, they really just need somebody to talk to. And when they can see that you're not a threat and you can really hear them out, now they're more open and reasonable to be able to discuss those things. Another thing that we do too during the childbirth educations, near the end, we get the dads involved in it's called an empathy session. And so at the empathy session, what we do is we try to simulate a dad basically getting pregnant with a big old, the jacket. You know what I'm talking about. And then on top of that too, we put things on them so that they can feel little levels of shock on them. So, like for instance, we tell them to drop their keys, and they gotta grab the keys with almost 30 pounds worth of weight on them, and they gotta try to pick it up, not by cheating and things like that. But the partner, she turns up and turns down the level of intensity of what he feels throughout that process. So he goes to that for 20, 30 minutes, and then we go over and discuss, well, what did you understand about it? What did you get out of that? And he's like, most of the dads, they'd be like, man, I understand why you wear sandals now. So we had one day, he was sweating, and he was in so much pain, but he understood, just like, hey, this is just a fraction of what she go through, and usually went through for 20 minutes, and she's going through that for all her pregnancy. So, we wanted you to really think about that. And so hopefully we want those dads to think about, hey, I do need to be more sensitive. Hey, I do need to be more supportive. I do need to be there for you because I didn't realize you were going through it. I thought you were just complaining. And in all reality, they can be able to have more empathy for how she's feeling, not just during the childbirth, but also during postpartum session.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're gonna skip around a little bit, a little fast forward here. Chris, can you share a story from work that you've done where the father's involvement either changed the trajectory of the mother's pregnancy, postpartum experience, or has changed his level of engagement with his children?
Yeah, so one specific story comes to mind, and I think it starts with just one holding space. We were teetering at the end of 2023. It was the day after Christmas. Like, should we hold group? It's just virtual group. It's like, no, nobody didn't show up. It's the day after Christmas. Why would anybody show up? And I was like, me and Reg finally decided, we'll be there. We showed up. We sat on Zoom for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and the dad actually showed up, who was actually, what we know now was actually a crisis. He was going through some challenges with the mother of his child and just being in his child's life. And the court system had already been involved. And we were just there to hear him out, hear his story, and talk to him. And from that day, he stuck with us. Like glue, we checked in with him. He dropped off for a little bit, but we stayed consistent in catching up with him. We're just making sure we reach out. Some days he even showed us a group, didn't turn his camera on and didn't say a word, but now knowing, he was like, it was what I needed that day, was to see that light at the end of the tunnel. And just last week, he shared with us that he is now done with the court system. He's been absolved from all child support, and he now has shared custody with his son now. And so he shared with us think one thing that just speaks to is about us being consistent and staying in the fatherhood journey and being a support. That there's always going to be a light at the tunnel. We don't know what that light at the tunnel is or what it will be. We always pray and hope for the best results, but just being there in that struggle and letting them know, like, hey, we're here to fight. No, we may not understand exactly what you're going through, but hey, we're here to listen. We're here for you to vent, and we're here to at least guide you in the way you should. We feel as appropriately in a woman that, right? So I think even during that time, we're like, hey, as much as you want to harden your heart and be angry and be frustrated, keep treating her nicely. Regardless of how you're treated, always don't give that energy back. Like just share in peace, share in love with her. And I think that's one of the real reasons why I came up with the budget like that. So.
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal story for many reasons. Dr. Joyer mentioned this morning about how we have to stop criminalizing dads trying to be dads, right? And we don't realize the impact that makes. We have a dad who's trying to be in his child's life, but everything around him is saying, no, you can't be there. And he is not like, he was abusive, he wasn't doing drugs, he wasn't doing any of that. He was just trying to show up. He actually moved out of state to be here, to show up for his child. And because there was a disagreement, he got cut off, got put in the system, and he had to go through 2 years of turmoil. When Chris shared, he said it was crisis, the dad shared with us that he was about to commit suicide. Like he was going to end his life because he couldn't be in his child's life and he thought no one cared. And because we held a group, there's just a whole space for folks in case they wanted to do it, when we was like, hey, we can take this week off, you know what I'm saying? We did it anyway, we were led to do it anyway. And he said that changed his entire trajectory, like literally changed his entire trajectory. And so when I say like we don't do this because we're looking for payment, we don't do this looking for acknowledgement, we're doing this because these are lives. And if it's only one life that we save, we made a difference because that one life is connected to another life. All right, so we're gonna get ready. We're gonna move through a couple more questions. So this one I'm gonna ask Norman. You can start with this one. What unique strengths do fathers bring to the table when they are supported and educated alongside mothers?
I think fathers have this level of empathy, of understanding of a mom that no one else has. When you show the stats of, unfortunately, preventable deaths, right? What I see is, I'm an analogy guy, and I see it as a team, and you have a player, you have a team that's really struggling. I mean, they terrible, right? You got a team that's struggling. And then you have this guy who walks in, who wants to join the team, right? He's excited, let's say he's 7 foot, he's 280 pounds, but let's say his skill ain't necessarily there yet. He loves the game. He just needs someone to help train and to equip and to work with him. And that player right there could be the game changer to help get the win for that team. I think that's the best way to see it. We were designed to be fathers. We were designed to be at every step of the journey. We were designed to be there. I think sometimes when you see stats like that, it's because we're out of position. I'm not going to go Adam and Eve thing, but we're out of position. Moms have been holding it down for years, but fathers are starting to get back into position. But it's up for organizations, it's up for the healthcare system to acknowledge fathers and equip them with the resources, community-led initiatives to support these dads. Because not only am I a dad who leads an initiative, I'm a dad who depends on my initiative. The guys that I serve, man, yesterday was a rough day for me, just keeping it real. Yesterday was really tough. It was so, you just go through a day, I was getting jabs all day. And by the end of the day, it was time for me to drive home. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna go perform. I'm gonna be dad, I'm gonna walk in. I can't wait to see my babies, I can't wait to see my wife, but it's heavy. And the pride just started to fall, and I said, I gotta make that phone call. And one of the guys who was part of my group, I gave him a call and I shared exactly where I was at. He didn't have the right answers, he didn't know what to say. But it gave me a space to share where I was at, to be aware of where I was at, and I was able to go home and not perform, but to even share deeper with my family where I was. So that's how important these community-led initiatives, starting with Holy and God. They not only save the lives of families, but they help the lives of the men You know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and these fatherhood groups do just that. So.
Anybody else want to add to that?
When it comes down to a father that's being supported and educated alongside their children, it's a powerful effect for the family. It's not just being the person that's just providing the finances, things like that. They're able to be that safe, like that safe space, that rock, that role model, that not just for the wife or for the partner, but also for the children. And not only that, who else is paying attention to that is other peers that are around them, you know, and that helps out in the community when we have strong fathers that are not just there to just say, hey, I'm here as a dad. No, they are fully engaged. They are trying to continue working on their family to build and to be stronger. Not just saying they're there, but emotionally connected with the family, really thinking about the needs of their family and to be there. And so I really agree with that point, though. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to begin to wrap it up here. 2 more questions, and then we'll close it out. I'm very time conscious because I believe in time. So, what should healthcare providers and support professionals do differently if they want to make space for fathers as allies in maternal health?
In my mind, just pick an organization. Do your research. We're here. We're out here. We're ready to do the work. As you see these 2 gentlemen or 3 gentlemen to my right, we're ready to do the work. So partner with the organization, see what the need is in that organization, and how you can help. I mean, to me, that's the basis of it all.
Also include fathers intentionally. Even though I'm a stepdad, I've been sitting to the doctor's office sometimes, and I'm just like, man, you know, this seems as good as my wife just sitting here. I can believe, basically, that it's like you're invisible. So really make sure that the fathers are included. I mean, just for them being there, you gotta give them credit for that. And so that's one of the things too that can definitely help a father be engaged, because that's the norm.
Okay, I like that. All right. So, last question is this. You all probably can get about a minute and a half in. What is a final thought that you want to leave for this audience? Final thoughts you want to leave for this audience? It's your time. Make it happen. Go on. That's fine.
Yeah, just real quick on your point, how you see fathers is how you treat them. So you always got to dissect your heart to know where you are when it comes to engaging fathers. Dads want to be involved. They are willing. They just need some support. And it's a lot of work. And it can get messy, you know, especially when you're dealing with co-parents and stuff and disagreement between mom and dad. You feel like you got to pick a side as a practitioner. You care about the baby. Making the right choice ain't always the easiest choice. And you have to be intentional about serving fathers. They are the ones who are in position and they're ready. So support community-led initiatives. There is a father in every community, or fathers in every community, willing to come together to do the work. Sometimes as organizations, we just have to be that backbone crew to help them along the way. You know, not to be the person in the paper to say, well, look what I did, but maybe a thankless job of supporting that community-led initiative, getting them off the ground and helping them along. And before I pass the mic, I want to thank Reginald is doing phenomenal work. There is no reason his number should be in your phone, and you should be partnering with Get At Me Dad. So I wanted to say thank you, Reginald, for this opportunity and for the work that you do. I know how much you pour out to this work. I know how much financially pour into this work. I got a glimpse of what I think you pour out, and we appreciate you, man. You saved a lot. I didn't
think of say that. Like, that's not me. I'm being honest. Like, that's not what it is about. Go ahead, Mark.
We're at this Maternal Health Summit, and let's just not forget about the dads, because the dads are a part of that equation for the maternal health of of these families. And so these fathers need to be engaged and supported and included for the families to be able to thrive, to be able to function better, and for their moms and the babies to be able to benefit. And so as fathers, let's have that mindset that they are necessary for the maternal health. It's not just like, oh, well, they're available and, oh, it's nice to have them. No, they are necessary for that improvement in maternal fetal health.
So each and every person in here holds a responsibility to the fathers here at this table, as well as fathers around the world, to partner, to share in this struggle, into this fight. Whether it's, if you can't devote your time, if you can't devote any energy or money, it's always nice to share an event. So in my mind, you see that event, share that event, right? Get the word out, spread the word. There are fathers out here doing the work. We don't get the publicity or the notoriety that we need for the work we do. Not to say, hey, I'm here doing something, but to be able to provide that help. I still have close friends who don't know what I do. So it's sharing that work first and foremost with others, right? Because it's about helping the family as a whole. I'm never here to take away from any mom or anything. I think there is space for both. We must demand that space from our healthcare providers to our systemic situations. We must demand that from them, that we hold space for both the father and mother. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you to our panelists. So really, thank you to all of you for even taking the time to listen to this conversation. I mean, I know you could have been anywhere in this hotel, taking a walk, whatever, but you took the time to be here, so we're really grateful for that. I just want to say thank you to those who are making space for men to be in the work, right? Like there's so many shout outs I can give, and so to protect myself, I'm only going to shout out one man who I just met today, Omar Jones, a doula, dad doula. Let's give it up for him. I think it's important to understand that dads want to be involved, right? Dads want to be involved, and when we make space to include them, now we develop partnerships, right? Because I believe in a community approach. I believe community can make a difference, and when we have the community in place and the community is educated, we can see change. But as long as we try to keep it high and systematic and all of these things, we're going to lose the very people that we are desiring to support. So let's, as we go forward beyond this conference, right, let's find ways to work better together. Thank you.
Can we give it up one more time for these amazing fathers, right? You are parents or a nana, a grandpa, a auntie, a cousin. You know how tiring it can be chasing after kids, talking to kids, dealing with kids, right? So to be a father and to do this work. So we have a couple minutes before we're going to go back to releasing you to the equity streets. So you can do your homework and you go to the breakout sessions. Can you give me a whoop if you already met your 3 people? Oh, I'm such a proud teacher. Good job. Can you give me a whoop if you unlearned something today? Okay, that's good. I'm going to share my homework with you. I met someone named Anisha from Saginaw. Where's she at? She in here too? Okay, let me tell you what's special about her. I mean, she's just special because she exists, but she's a doula, and she trains other doulas. And just last year alone, in 1 year, she trained 124 doulas across the state. That's a whole lot of doula here. And if that wasn't fun enough, right, you thought that was the fun fact, you're wrong. Her great-grandmother was a traveling midwife in the 1900s. It's not on you, it's in you. That was one of my homework people. Brianna came up to me. She goes to WMU. Brianna, where you at? Wave your hand. If you're in here, she's somewhere, there it is. She knows a lot of fun facts about Kalamazoo, but she's also here to dedicate her time and resources to learning about maternal infant health. She told me that in Kalamazoo, it used to be illegal to serenade your girlfriend after 10 p.m. I don't even want to get into why, but now you met two people and you got a fun fact. So in about a minute or so, we're gonna have you take a break. You can go to the exhibit halls. If you are following the agenda, it's a little bit shorter than the last time. I see 2 to 2:15. So mix, mingle, but make sure you don't miss the amazing sessions. As always, if you see me or anyone at this table, we're losing people. Where the rest of the staff go? If you need help, just ask us. Otherwise, you are released to the equity streets to finish your homework, and we'll see you back at 3:15.